Tonight on Nova. A passenger jet with 47 on board crashes into a remote jungle. In just seconds, a routine flight turns into tragedy. Investigators pick through debris spread across several miles.
Look at this piece here, guys.
Why did this plane fall from the sky?
This is a clear evidence of a major fire.
Can they find the clue to what caused the mysterious crash of Flight 201?
Funding for NOVA's 20th anniversary season is made possible by Lockheed, America's aerospace company, supporting math, science, and engineering education for national technology leadership. And Johnson & Johnson, the signature recognized around the world for commitment to quality healthcare products for the entire family. Major funding for NOVA is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by annual financial support from viewers like you.
June 7, 1992. Search planes take off to look for a missing Boeing 737 passenger aircraft. The plane disappeared from radar last night while on a routine flight to Cali, Colombia. Its last known position was over dense jungle. It's the previous day, and nothing seems out of the ordinary. The passengers gather for Flight 201. This is a new route to Colombia, operated by 𝗃𝗃, Panama's largest airline. The flight is scheduled to take 65 minutes. Tropical storms have hovered over the Gulf of Panama all day, affecting air traffic in the area. Darkness is just falling as the 12-year-old Boeing 737 is cleared for takeoff. The aircraft has a reputation of being one of the most reliable in the skies, but this plane will never reach its destination. It will take investigators a year to find out why. After takeoff, the pilot asks air traffic control for permission to deviate around bad weather in the Gulf of Panama. This brings the plane over the Darien jungle, one of the most remote areas in Central America. After reaching an altitude of 25,000 feet, the pilot tells the controller he is turning right to get back to his original route.
After he mentioned that he was going to rejoin the airway and the controller answered him his request about the weather, maybe 2 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, 2 minutes, the signal disappeared on radar.
22 minutes after takeoff, all contact with Flight 201 is lost. At dawn, a search is mounted. After 8 hours, the first wreckage is spotted. It takes rescuers 12 hours to reach the scene. They find pieces of the aircraft and passengers' personal belongings spread over the jungle floor. 47 people were in the plane, 40 passengers and 7 crew members. There are no survivors. The bodies provide the first clue.
Coloquen la bolsa primero al lado de ella.
The clothes on most of them have been blown off, suggesting a free fall from high altitude. It will take 7 days to locate 46 bodies scattered across 2 square miles of jungle. The last body will not be found for another month. The next day, one of the plane's 2 black boxes, the cockpit voice recorder, is found. The second one, the flight data recorder, has not yet been located.
Los investigadores son los que van a la carretera. ¿Para dónde la llevan? ¿A qué?
The voice recorder is flown to Panama City, where the investigation into the cause of the crash is being conducted by the Directorate of Civil Aviation. 𝗖mě𝗽𝗶𝗶𝗵𝗁, the Director General, briefs the press.
También debo decirles que se ha logrado comunicar el voice recorder, que es lo que se llama la caja negra.
The voice recorder, contained in an orange case for higher visibility, picks up all cockpit sounds on a continuous loop of tape. It is usually a critical tool in crash investigations. This vital source of evidence will be flown to the United States for analysis. Does it hold the secret of Flight 201? The National Transportation Safety Board offers its assistance to foreign governments when American-made aircraft are involved. Flight 201's voice recorder arrives at NTSB's Washington laboratories.
Now what happens in this particular recorder is it's a coaxial recorder, where it has 2 types of reels, one on top of the other.
The results of the analysis are discouraging.
The last recording on the tape was a flight that occurred about 7-8 days prior to the accident flight. The tape had broken and quit running, the 7-8 days before, so we didn't have the voice recorder for the accident flight. We've had the recorder looked at, inspected. It was in fairly good condition.
When we opened up the recorder, what we found is this ball of tape on the top of it, which we refer to as a bird's nest of tape.
Possibly during the last maintenance, a couple of screws were left out, or a couple of washers left out on rebuild that allowed the tension level to get too high in the tape and broke the tape.
Investigator in charge, Tom Howder, leads the NTSB team to Panama. Because the debris and the condition of the bodies from Flight 201 suggest a mid-air breakup, investigators will look first to see if there was an explosion on board. An explosives expert at the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, 𝗖𝗽𝗶𝗶𝗵𝘁, is part of the team. Team member Tom Carmody checks with the airport control tower. Since the cockpit voice recorder failed, investigators look for any other recording of sound from Flight 201.
Flight level 270.
Is there a tape recording of from the night of the accident?
We lose the power.
Okay. We're trying to determine which pilot was talking on the radios. Because the pilot normally talking on a radio is not the pilot flying the aircraft. So we're trying to figure out which pilot was flying the aircraft.
Howder inspects a Copa 737 aircraft identical to the one that crashed. Before going into the jungle, he wants to fix the plane's specific layout in his mind. A classroom at the Panamanian School of Aviation has been set aside for the NTSB team. Here, they study maintenance records, flight logs, and any other documents related to Flight 201. The possibility of a bomb preoccupies 𝗏𝗏.
If in fact you had a bomb in the cargo area, depending on the size of the device, the size of the bomb, you could very easily get some components of the bomb, such as clock parts, battery parts, parts of the container. Let's say it was inside of a radio. You may get parts of that radio actually in, that would penetrate the floor and be a passenger sitting directly over top of it might in fact become embedded in their feet, in their legs, if they had their legs spread out. If the device was underneath the seat itself, it could be in their buttocks area. If a flight attendant's walking by with a drink cart or service cart, they could have it in their extremities. If it's up in the overhead, you're going to get it up in the upper torso and the head area. And that's why we go to the medical examiner and we ask that they do a full body x-ray.
But first, all the bodies have to be recovered. Panama's most experienced firemen and disaster relief workers toil in 120-degree heat. The task is enormous. Captain Ernesto Ponce, the Panamanian chief investigator, briefs the American team.
We found a big fuel in the water.
A reconnaissance pilot has spotted pieces of metal in the Gulf along the route Flight 201 would have taken. Could the metal belong to a second plane? Was there a mid-air collision?
And this area is the route for the cocaine people. They use turbo commanders. They can fly very high.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think it's good to have in mind.
The Americans fly over the area where the pieces were spotted, but they see nothing. The NTSB team arrives at the crash site. With debris scattered across so much jungle, finding critical parts of the downed airplane is difficult.
See here, this is the headset for talking to the passengers. They give the announcements. Would be, that's the end of it.
The investigators want to explore a badly burned area spotted from a helicopter.
Okay.
They struggle to get there, hoping to determine if fire played a role in the crash of Flight 201. When they reach the burn area, several questions arise. Was the fire caused by the plane slamming into the jungle floor?
This is the center section of the wing. The main landing gear is right there below you, one of the pieces. The other piece is just down the hill.
Was there a fireball in midair after the breakup? Or was a fire on board Flight 201 the cause of the accident? The answers to these questions lie somewhere in this wreckage. Despite the suggestion of a fire and speculation about a bomb or a mid-air collision, the investigators must first sift through every piece of evidence they can find before jumping to conclusions. Representatives of Pratt & Whitney, makers of the plane's engines, investigators from Boeing, and consultants from 𝗃𝗃 join the team. Every possible bit of expertise is enlisted, including that of local Indians, who are masters in penetrating the dense jungle.
And I went a little farther to the right, and I've got a microwave oven from the galley, it looks like, and it's sort of real bad.
We want to reconfirm this is the #1 engine at that last position I gave you?
Copy, #1 engine.
Is this the engine that he was taking us to, or is
No,
it another one?
this is the other one.
This is their other one.
This is number 2.
In Panama City, the team is creating an inventory of parts already discovered.
They've scratched through the paint right down to the aluminum, but there's no deposit there.
Dennis Rodriguez is a Boeing engineer assigned to the team.
This is probably broken up, and we just are missing too much of this section here and that. Okay. And that could have come off.
No, I'm reading.
With most of the aircraft still missing, investigators work to map the crash site.
Then I found the right wingtip.
Why don't we draw that in here while we're at it?
You're probably better than I do, but
Well, just get a location.
Yeah, we changed it till we all agree, I guess.
right here was
Even coming into the engine.
Well, number it.
Number 6.
number 6.
What's this doing? Okay, number 6.
What do you want to call it?
Trying to show the front numbers here.
We're finding pieces from the front of the airplane with pieces from the rear of the airplane, and vice versa. We're finding right side pieces on the left side. I mean, there's no pattern. You take a look at the wreckage diagram, there's no pattern to how things came down. It's all over the place. And that is really confusing. I mean, the other accident I had before this was complicated. We had the whole airplane, it was burned, but it was all in one spot, and it was just a matter of trying to go through and understand what happened. And it took time to prove that by simulations and by tests, but at least we had the whole airplane.
This is a very heavy section airplane. It has the landing gear, it has the center wing structure, which is very heavy. This other piece that broke off should be lighter depending on the size. It could have went on beyond it, down in here.
There's an area here with big broken trees, but no parts found. There's a deep valley, and something is in here, but nobody found any parts. But we know something is in there.
From the air, it looks like something
You
is...
stand on the ground and you see big trees broken, and there's nothing.
But people who've been there haven't seen anything, so we'd like to go back to that area and see if this piece that goes in between here, or between here, I guess, if that's it over there. That may be a substantial part of the airplane we haven't seen.
A team of U.S. Air Force pathologists arrives from Miami to help. Panama City's public morgue does not have enough doctors to perform the 47 autopsies. After days in the jungle, most of the bodies can be identified only through dental records.
The individuals here start collecting the records by calling up the parents and the family members of their next of kin. Call, tell who their dentist was. The dentist forwards or faxes that record to us, and then we don't know who these people are.
Most of the passengers were Colombian merchants returning from business in Panama City. As the NTSB team reaches the crash site again, the cockpit is discovered. It was found by the father of the co-pilot, a pilot himself, who searched the jungle for many days looking for his son's body.
Okay. Yeah.
Through the window, only the co-pilot's body is visible.
Huh? Where's the captain's seat? Where's the captain? Here's his seat. See, there's the floor, captain's floor track. This is the captain's seat. How'd you get out? Come on. You should be lying on top of the co-pilot, hitting this side, not...
Could be.
There's still at least one crew member in.
I can see an arm over here.
Yeah.
When the cockpit is opened, the body of the captain will be found inside. It will be discovered that he was not wearing his seatbelt. The first funeral is held. Family and the close-knit airline community mourn one of the 5 flight attendants. This is Panama's first major plane crash in 40 years. In the jungle, the investigators look for more evidence of a fire.
Look at this piece here, guys. Woo!
They want to know whether the plane was in flames before it crashed.
It's got a number on it, so why don't we get the number?
Turn it over and I'll take a picture of it. Let's truck this out. Just turn it around. This needs to come out.
Any wreckage that shows sooting on the inside of the cabin suggests an onboard fire.
So this is Cali again. We're back up in the area that I was in that first day, and you know, we're finding pieces of obvious burn aircraft.
Is that right?
Yeah, we found that 3 section of seats again, and now we've got a window belt area that's really sooted. One window's missing. Well, 3 windows are missing. The one that's intact is sooted, and the frame members are all sooted up.
The inside or outside?
Inside.
Really? Okay.
Forward cargo door. Forward cargo door butts in right on that edge there, Bob.
And so what we're saying is
it's upside down.
Yeah, we're seeing sooting forward of this cargo area, because there's the liner.
Yeah. I mean, look how this is bubbled here.
Yep. This floor piece. Everything we've seen so far has been sooting. This is a clear evidence of a major fire.
The parts leave the crash site for a 10-minute helicopter flight to the Indian village of 𝗏𝗏. The investigators have set up a remote base here. Communication specialists from the Federal Aviation Administration set up a satellite link between 𝗏𝗏 and Washington, so the investigators can share their concern about a fire on board with the NTSB headquarters.
Okay.
The biggest thing we found, we've got a section of overhead storage bin, honeycomb material that's completely burned. It's been through one hell of a fire, but there's no fire around it. We feel pretty convinced that that thing was on fire prior to the breakup. It was found a long ways away from the burn area.
What you're talking about. You know, I just can't conceive of why.
In Panama City, the parts that show evidence of fire get special attention.
Broken out of the airplane, they could have been flying through the air and punched a tree.
Boy, that'd be,
well,
yeah.
You know, that'd be kind of a...
Well, it could have.
What we're trying to find out is whether this piece burned up in the airplane while it was intact, or whether it burned during the breakup or after the breakup.
The pathologists are about to brief the investigators on their findings.
Ventilation ducts.
If there were a fire on board, the pathologists would find evidence of it in at least some of the bodies.
One of the questions that we were asked is, was there a fire aboard? Based on the examination of the remains that we have made and that the Panamanian authorities had made prior to our arrival, there's no indication of any fire in the passenger compartment. This is based on, number one, we have no evidence of burning or singeing of skin, and there's no evidence of soot or smoke inhalation in tracheas. And all of the tracheas were, on all 47 people who were examined, were open and were examined just for that.
In both the pilot and the co-pilot, no soot was found in the airway, there were no shrapnel injuries, and there were no thermal injuries or burns evident upon either body. With regard to soft tissue injuries of the pilot, the left base of the thumb demonstrated a laceration or a tearing type of injury. With regard to fracturing of bones, the pilot demonstrated, as I've already mentioned, shattering of the head and face. In addition to this, the chest was crushed. There was fracturing of the upper backbone as well as the lower backbone. The hip bones were crushed. Both thigh bones or femurs were fractured.
Failure to find evidence of smoke or burns on any of the bodies rules out fire as a cause of the crash. Now, investigators examine the reports for other clues. They would like to know which pilot was in control of the aircraft. The captain, who had 32 years' experience, or his co-pilot, who had been flying just 2.5 years. The captain's body was found without a seatbelt. Was he out of the cockpit when the trouble began?
The injuries that the captain received appear to indicate that he was in a hard right rudder. That's what Commander Burns said. And the reason why he said that is because it appears that his left hand was on control, his right hand was on the throttle, and the injuries to his feet were fractures, and that the co-pilot had both hands on the control because his injuries were more lacerations rather than fractures.
I say in some cases, if the rudder pedals are broken, if the ankles are broken, if the control yoke is broken over, and the wrists are broken, pretty good indication that that guy was on the controls. And then if you don't have anything like that on the other guy, then pretty good indication that only one guy was on the controls. But beyond that, I think you're guessing.
Because there is no cockpit voice recording and both bodies received similar injuries, which pilot was in control remains a mystery. The turning point in the investigation comes when the second black box containing the flight data recorder is analyzed in Washington. These numbers are the second-by-second readings from the airplane's main instruments. This is the only testimony to what happened in the cockpit minutes before the crash. As the data spills onto the screen, it paints a frightening picture of a plane out of control at 25,000 feet.
Can they fax us a copy of that data tomorrow?
In a hotel room in Panama City, the investigators are on a conference call with the NTSB engineers who analyze the flight data. Bud Donner from the FAA reviews the critical last minutes of Flight 201.
He then makes a left turn, 35 degrees bank to 130, and that's excessive. You know, you don't use 35 with passengers, you use maybe 20.
35 degrees?
Yeah, it goes to 130, then it pitches over, gains 10 knots, loses 500 feet, 33 degrees again, left wing down, same as before. Then the pitch angle decreases to a -7, so the nose is going further down. Second and a half, he's in a 112 degree right wing down, so he's over the top.
But look how fast he does this. He goes from 3 degrees, right roll.
And how much is that, 5 seconds?
No, that is in 1 second.
1 second.
That's 1 second.
Wow.
Okay, that'll be mistaken?
We're going through this data completely. We don't know. What my engineers are telling me is what we see is what's there, but we got to. Wow. But this gets better. So you come on down to the data.
It's pretty constant.
It's pretty constant. But now look at this. You get down here, and suddenly it goes from left wing down 36 degrees to right wing down 25 degrees. Once again in 1 second.
1 second, and then what?
Then a second later, it's 115 degrees.
Wow.
So that's, there's a lot of this data that you take a look at and it doesn't make any sense. This is level flight. This is 90 degrees straight down, and so that's approximately 45. 70, something like 80
is about like that.
80 is about like that.
But he's also rolled to the right to 117.
Yeah, so now you rolled over and, So now you're doing something like this.
Maybe. If the gyros
if the data's
giving
correct.
honest information.
The bottom line is, do you see a problem in the data?
Correct.
The data shows that several times the plane rolls to one side, freezes in that position, and then snaps to the opposite side, something Boeing says a 737 cannot physically do. But physically possible or not, it was these readings that appeared on the instruments in Flight 201's cockpit. To find out how 𝗂𝗶 pilots might have reacted to these readings, we visit an independent pilot training facility in Houston. Inside this Boeing 737 flight simulator is a cockpit similar to the one in which the two 𝗂𝗶 pilots sat. We provide our pilots with the instrument readings from Flight 201's recorder. They climb to 25,000 feet and reenact the final minutes of the 𝗂𝗶 flight. Flight 201 crashed at night. In darkness, when the pilot cannot see the horizon, his only information about the plane's position in the air comes from these instruments. When our pilots respond to Flight 201's instrument readings and try to fly accordingly, they quickly lose control of the aircraft. The investigators are back in the jungle. Their focus has shifted to the possible mechanical failure of the cockpit instruments. The cockpit will be rolled over and cut open to expose the instruments.
Óyela.
Yeah, that's right. I know that's the trouble. You don't have a very long.
Por eso digo, él dice que si ustedes jalan malo que vayan a arrastrarse y a meterse más abajo.
Somewhere here.
That's interesting. Caliban altitude's reading 25,000.
Right.
Something opened up.
Well, how about if we are descending, it should move also.
Sure.
Down.
It should move.
Why it stay on 25,000?
If you lose electrical, it's electrically driven.
Well, but so is this.
Yeah.
We return to the Boeing 737 simulator to learn about the instrument that may have misled the pilots on board Flight 201. This instrument, which displays information from a gyroscope, shows what angle the plane is flying in relation to the ground. It is called the attitude indicator, or artificial horizon.
This is a control for a system that can tell what is level in relation to the Earth. It can also tell if the airplane is level with that, or if it has one wing up, one wing down, or the nose is above the horizon or below the horizon. And it will display this information on this instrument. The blue part represents the sky above the horizon, and the dark part represents the Earth below the horizon. This one does the same thing and displays that same information on this indicator on the other side of the cockpit. Normally, the left-hand side displays information here, the right-hand side displays information there, as long as this switch is in the center position. If one of these systems should fail, then we can use this switch to put both displays on the good instrument, like so. If both of these systems are operating normally, that switch should remain in the center position, and you have two independent systems, one backing up the other for safety. If for some reason these two systems disagree with each other, we have a third standby system which is not related to the other two that we can use for comparison. It has its own power supply from the airplane battery and its own internal gyroscope to give it its indications. So, if we have a disagreement between the two main indicators, we can compare each one with this. Whichever one of those is incorrect will not agree with that one. So we have three possibilities of telling what is the position of the airplane in relation to the Earth. Is the nose too high, too low? Is the wing down on the right, or is the wing down on the left?
Back in the jungle, the team uncovers an important clue. The switch between the two main attitude indicators is set to the both-on-one position and points to VG1, vertical gyro on the captain's side.
I don't know if somebody just moved that, but...
you never know in something like this, but...
This tells the investigators that at the time of the crash, the pilots were getting attitude information from only one of the plane's two main gyroscopes.
Yeah, you could get in the back maybe and...
Was the switch set this way by mistake, eliminating without the pilot's knowledge an important safety feature? Or did the pilot switch to the both-on-one position because one of the indicators was malfunctioning? In which case, what about the third independent indicator? Did they ignore it? Without the cockpit voice recorder, we will never know. The number of parts recovered by the Panamanians exceeded all of the American team's expectations.
Still the same time.
While their focus is on the attitude indicators, they do not discount a number of other possibilities as they eagerly examine the parts.
Serial number 801 008.
Boxes filled with parts will now be shipped to labs throughout the United States for testing. In Washington, NTSB engineers use computer graphics to explain what investigators think actually happened during Flight 201. They animate the images of two planes, one a solid, the other a stick figure.
He'd been deviating around a thunderstorm and now has to make a turn to get back onto course. It's a gradual turn. It appears to be done by autopilot, by the rates. Now the aircraft will start to roll out on course. And you'll notice that the gray airplane will hold a 4-degree bank attitude, while the stick figure airplane starts rolling to the left.
The solid plane behaves according to the attitude indicator's readings from Flight 201. This is how the Copa pilots assumed they were flying. The stick figure plane shows what the investigators believe Flight 201 was actually doing. It illustrates how fast a Boeing 737 could have physically rolled from one point to another, while the attitude indicator said the plane's angle was frozen.
And suddenly, the gray airplane will snap roll to the right to join up with it. So far, airspeed and altitude are about the same. There's some slight fluctuations, but nothing great. Vertical G's are about 1 G. It's holding together. Now, as the aircraft rolls past 90 degrees, they'll snap roll back, and all of a sudden the altitude starts spinning down quickly. We're at 22,000 feet. The airspeed is building, 21,000 feet, over 400 miles an hour. 400 knots, excuse me. 17,000 feet, 450 knots, 14,000 feet, almost 480 knots, until the data ends at less than 10,000 feet. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Tom Houter, the investigator in charge, and Greg Phillips, an NTSB expert in aircraft systems, share their findings with the Panamanians.
Engine, here's the standby that we've added. The vertical bars here are timing bars. They're just 5 seconds apart. He's leveling out, but he doesn't quite level. He's got a 4-degree bank in it.
The attitude indicator's stuck.
It's stuck at 4 degrees.
That's what he's seeing.
That's what he's seeing.
Here's the standby indicator, which still shows us where we are.
Okay.
Now watch the difference between the two.
Suddenly it snaps, goes the other direction.
Sticks again.
Now it's stuck at 35 degrees. He's bringing it back. He's got a little bump in vertical G, but not much. He's still trying to roll the airplane. And there, now he's in trouble. What you would feel if you were in the cockpit of the aircraft or in the passenger compartment was nothing. It was always 1 G pushing you in the seat. It was a very smooth, comfortable maneuver up until the time the aircraft was actually almost inverted. They didn't realize they were in trouble until there was no recovery possible.
We saw what looked like a normal flight until about 23, 24 minutes into the flight. The first indication we had that something didn't make sense to us was the data showed that the airplane made several rolls and then would stop when it made the roll. The roll would just freeze, and normally airplanes don't do that. They continue moving from one place to another. Looking at this data a little closer, we started to look for possible explanations of what caused the data to look like that. Did the airplane really do that? We didn't think so.
The investigators looked to various labs for the answer. All 3 gyroscopes and attitude indicators were tested. The results deepen the mystery.
Our primary concern initially was to go test the attitude indicator, what the captains and the co-pilots. We tested those at Collins and Cedar Rapids. We found no failures. The attitude indicators for both sides worked. We turned them, we banked them, we pitched them, we rolled them. We put them in a hot chamber to heat them up to see if they would fail. We did several tests and they worked. After the crash, they worked just fine. That's when the discussions started about what could happen, what would cause this trace to stick this way. The only part of the system that we haven't looked at or hadn't looked at until this time was the wiring between the components, between the gyro provides the roll information and what the pilot sees. We intend to begin this afternoon and over the next couple of days to examine that wiring and look for any possibilities that there had been some failure of that wire.
If you don't get some kind of proof with the cables regarding that point, this is a theory. That's it.
It's at the safety board we determine probable cause, and I would say that we have eliminated every other possibility that could bring this airplane down. There's no indication of bombs, terrorism, weather, control surface, engines. Through the process of elimination, we go down through it and we take a look, and of everything we've seen of the wreckage, of the instrumentation, and of the data, This is the only piece that doesn't make sense. Now, Greg's absolutely right. We can look at this whole wire bundle, and we may find nothing wrong with it. But something caused this instrument to read this way.
Let's see. What?
The team makes one more trip to the jungle. Since the attitude indicators and the gyroscopes were found to be working after the crash, it could be that faulty wiring between them will explain the misleading attitude readings.
As long as we can keep going to the next place. Okay. See, this here is, what about a ground block?
With other factors eliminated, these wires may provide the final clue if the right one can be found.
22 and now 23 are okay. So we're good. This one hold together again? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go 20. Okay, so we go 1. Good pointer. Oh, man. Nothing? Nothing. I'm going to go back to 22. Yeah, good. 22 good. 21, I'm going to go down a little bit. Go down to 17. Okay, here's 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13. And then back to 22.
Several things can go wrong with these wires. They could short out, break apart, or come loose from the pin. The hardest to find would be an intermittent connection, a possibility which would explain the sporadic freeze shown by the artificial horizon.
This one just came out easily?
A Panamanian engineer reports that he found a loose wire.
This is at 4205.
It doesn't pull. It wasn't pulled, it just fell. What was its condition before it just fell out? Was it hanging on by a strand? Or?
It looks like the loose wire is the one that connects the gyroscope to the attitude indicator. Confirmation of the specific function of this wire will come from Collins' lab in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
We have the whole wire bundle from the airplane here, and they were pulling each of the wires out of the connector, and this one wire just fell out. We like to have the end of the wire looked at under the SEM to determine how it failed, whether it's fatigue, whether it was pulled, anything.
We need to get hold of Collins pretty quick. In fact, we're trying to get hold of Collins right now, so I think I better get off the phone.
He's on vacation? Just a minute. He's on vacation.
Oh, okay. Just a minute. Just a moment, please. Shoot.
Talk to this guy and find out who would be able to.
Can you hang on a minute, please? Hello?
This is Joe.
Hello? Yes.
Hello?
Yes. My name is 𝗖ญ่𝗽𝗶𝗶𝗵𝗁 with the Boeing company.
No, the pin and the wire are no longer attached to each other. That's the problem. Yes, exactly.
We were doing a continuity check on the wire bundle that goes between the ADI and the instrument amplifier, and in trying to de-pin the wire, one of the wires kind of came loose and fell out apparently, and we wanted to find out what impact it would have on the ADI indication if that wire happened to, say, disconnect.
If this wire caused the interruption of the signal to the attitude indicator, then the last piece of the puzzle is in place. Boeing will have to notify maintenance personnel around the world to check this wire on thousands of planes for a possible failure.
And thus the roll indication will freeze. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
And what do you get a flag?
No, you wouldn't get a flag because in this case, since there's no air signal, no flag.
As soon as the wire is packaged to be sent to NTSB in Washington for testing under an electronic microscope, Greg Phillips has second thoughts about whether the loose wire is really the one connecting the gyroscope to the attitude indicator. Videotape shot by our cameraman helps him double-check.
Well, we can get into that. We'll look at that and take a look at it. 42 has got a wire in it. It's 43.
Okay. It's 43.
We called it 43, but it wasn't 43. Just fell out. Okay, but look now.
But what was its condition before it just fell out? Was it hanging on by a strand? Or?
Well, we can get into that. We'll look at that and take a look at it.
Where's 42?
Where's 42 in the film? 42 is the second open hole right up here.
They're both empty.
Right.
Yeah, why did I say it had a wire in it? We just were so anxious to find the 42 wire broken or the 43 wire, we just called it that.
The investigators will now report the news to disappointed Panamanian officials who had hoped the loose wire would provide the final explanation for the faulty instrument readings. Nevertheless, the American team still believes that a bad connection between a gyroscope and the attitude indicator caused Flight 201's pilots to receive incorrect information.
I want them to go ahead and look at the wire that's broken.
Based on all the findings, here is a plausible scenario for the final minutes of the fatal flight. In total darkness, the aircraft makes a turn. The pilot banks the plane to the left and then levels off to the right to complete the turn. But the malfunctioning artificial horizon shows him that the plane is not returning to level flight as expected. To correct for this, the pilot continues to roll the plane to the right. In reality, it has already rolled onto its right side. This ill-fated attempt to correct for things his plane is not doing lasts for 70 seconds. Eventually, the Boeing 737 rolls over completely and begins an upside-down, high-speed fall that ends at just under 10,000 feet when the aerodynamic forces caused by a 560-mile-per-hour dive literally pull the airplane apart.
The design of the airplane, I think, speaks for itself. The airplane has something like 50 million flight hours total service for the 737 series. It's been in service over 20 years. It has a very reliable history. The design of the independent systems, the two gyros, the two indicators, the standby indicator. Allowances have been made for this airplane to have failures and still not crash when it flies. So you have to consider those things. But then on the other hand, we want to be able to fix something to not make up, but to take the place of what happened to Copa 201. Yeah. So, you know, that's where we're at. And I think one of the first things I can think about the lessons we've learned in this accident is if we are convinced that this was caused by the pilot looking at an indicator that was wrong when they were both on VG1, we need to let pilots know once again that these instruments are very, very important, and you need to cross-check. You need to look at your standby instruments. You need to know when you go both on one that you don't have the safety functions of comparison. Mm-hmm. Maybe the lesson we've learned in this accident is to tell them once more that this is important to them.
The mysterious crash of Flight 201 reminds us of the critical link between human and technological failure.